And okay, step two. So I'm going to assume that we are good to begin, unless I hear otherwise. And so I will say at 7:05, we'll call the meeting to order, and I would ask for a roll call.
Yes. Kevin Collins.
Here.
Matt Castillo.
Here.
Norma Greco.
Here.
Adam McDowell.
Here.
Valerie Renthaler.
Here.
Diane Law.
Here.
And Mayor Paul Gamert.
Here.
Thank you.
And I too am here for the matter of record, even though it seems obvious, right? Welcome to an October to remember. So begins the workshop. We'll do public comment, and then there's just a quick couple items of discussion, and then I think at that moment we will look to head back into at 8 o'clock the continued public hearing. So that being the case, beginning in the public comment space, this is again the process by which, if you raise your hand, I can call on you. You'll have 3 minutes to make a comment. Please remember that for those who have upcoming in the middle, and I don't know quite where we are in the testimony because it's all blur at certain times. This is not that moment. You certainly can make comments on that, but it will be limited to 3 minutes, and it will be in the context of where we are, not on the record in terms of the public hearing. Having said that, I will look and see if there's anyone who would like to comment. Again, if you raise your hand, there's a little button at the bottom that says raise your hand. If you do so, then I am able to call you, and we can make sure that you have the opportunity to speak. I see that Alex, you've promoted one already, and it's the only one whose hand is raised right now, and so that would be Rose Salata. Rose, you're free to speak.
Yes, hi, good evening. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and with all due respect, Mr. Mayor and council men and women, I hope that you have been listening very carefully to all of the very lucid, educated, well-researched data that the residents of your brilliant borough have presented to you, because it has been the data that has been collected by our residents has greatly overshone the data that was presented by Langen and by Gateway. I hope you were listening. I hope that you're impressed with the amount of passion and love that the residents of this community have for what this community offers to us, and that you listen to your constituents rather than listening to the Allegheny County commissioners and councilmen. This is our community. This is your community. Please respect it and listen to your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, Rose.
Oh,
Go ahead. You've got some time left. I'll get it back to you.
I don't know what the fear is of voting your conscience. I don't know what the fear is. And you have to search your conscience for how you're going to vote. You live here. Are we going to make it the borough of Amazon, or continue to have the borough of Churchill? Thank you.
You are welcome. And again, I don't do much back and forth. I will say I don't think that fear is a driving component, but I appreciate your comment. I'm going to look and see if there's any other.
Hey, Rose
Yes.
or Jay.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Just for the record, I don't know if you stated your street address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You call that.
Okay, I'm at 1921 Garrick Drive, and I've been a resident of Churchill for 32 years.
Thank you so much.
Good catch, Matt. Appreciate it. I see next we have Ken Belke, if you can promote him. I still leave this to you, Alex, even though I see the buttons. I don't want to mess with it. That's why. All right, Ken, you have been promoted. The floor is yours if you would like to speak.
Okay. Thank you. Ken Balke, 2007 Hampstead Drive. My question should be hopefully as quick. I haven't seen the agenda. I'm assuming, is there committee reports this evening? And if the answer is yes, I'll withhold my comments till then. I have something nice to return, by the way. I just want to make sure it was on the agenda. I didn't see the agenda. Just want to make sure that committee reports were going to be part of the agenda this evening.
So as a matter of the discussion phase that we have, any kind of reports or any reporting can be acknowledged at that point. So I can certainly make sure that if you would like to do it then, that you can do it then, Ken.
Okay, well then I'll go back. I'll speak at that time then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Which will be sooner than you think, Ken. Just depending on what happens in public comment. I don't know if there's anybody else who wanted to make comment. I will give another kind of quick second. Again, I know that sometimes finding buttons can be a challenge for all of us, myself certainly included. And if not, then we will move on to discussion items. All right, then we are going to move on to the discussion items. I just want to start and see if there's anything coming up, Mayor, that we needed to know, anything you've heard from the police, particularly on the chief, any updates before we even see reports.
Thank you. I haven't talked to the chief in a couple of days. I know he was operated on last week. He's home recovering. Officer Plines is in charge of everything right now. So we're hoping to see Chief Ackley up and around soon.
Yeah, just send him something. Have him both arms. That sucks. Yeah, so maybe we can talk about that. Alex, we just reach out, maybe think about setting some kind of sympathy thing or something. I mean, it's just surgery, but that just sucks. You know, I can't come up with any other way to say it. But there's a more delicate way of saying that. Please let me know.
And you know, he both arms needed operated on. He had one done. I assume it's going to wait till that heals a little bit, and then the second one will be done as well.
On the other side of that, is he able to drive? Do we know what the status is on that after surgery? What's that going to look like? Is he updating us? So that mute button is a killer, Paul.
There he goes. I did have a call into him on Sunday, and I haven't heard back from him yet.
Yeah.
I would imagine with an arm in a sling, it might be difficult to drive.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to jump on him a day after surgery. I'm not that bad. So, but just kind of the reality, knowing that he's going to go one arm and then the other arm, it could be a very long time, and we certainly need his administrative skills in some capacity, even if it's from home.
No.
So just to cover that one. All right, that was my only discussion. Any discussion items coming out from folks? Righty.
Jay, it's Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I just want to note that Krista and I had a meeting with the WPGA AA Authority, the Water Authority. They've had some retirements, and we talked to the fellow that's now working on the different reports. So I think it was a good meeting. I'm trying to get more data, more specific data on the Water Authority. So it's a good step forward. So that discussion will continue.
Positive.
Krista, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Oh, nothing to add. I think you're absolutely right. And we can continue to look into other options with WPJWA and try to work through the issues that we suffered from for the last several years in our audit.
Thank you, Chris.
Suffered from an audit are not words that I love to hear, but positive steps I like. Right. Any specific updates, Dennis, in terms of just kind of running through these, making sure we got it covered outside of the giant thing that is the giant thing?
Well, which giant thing are you? Oh, okay. I think I know what you're
There's one giant thing that I put over here.
Yes.
The other giant thing is over here, and that's a fine giant thing, right?
And many of you are aware tomorrow is groundbreaking for the pump station project, which it's a pretty big thing as well. And that work should be beginning here within the next couple of weeks. The other also large thing in a six-year time frame type of project is the new consent order for sanitary sewer consent order, which that's on the agenda to be reviewed coming up. Pavement plan is completed for this year. All paving is completed, so it's positive we have that out of the way.
Just little things, right?
And Alex or Dennis, the time and place for the groundbreaking is tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow at 10 a.m., Tuesday, October 5th, and it's at the Black Ridge Civic Association. The pump station is located right off along the ball field, and people will be able to park if they want to join us up at the Civic Association parking lot or down below at the end of Collins Road. Senator Jay Costa will be joining us and offering some remarks. He was instrumental in helping us to get some grant funds for the project. So we're pretty excited about that. And some individuals from El Casan as well plan to be there. They also provided some grant for the project.
Please send my thanks. I certainly cannot, unfortunately cannot attend tomorrow. I really would like to. I think seeing folks is a plus. But right now, until I get back a test result, I am stuck at my house. So such is the life that we live.
Well, we'll be sure. There's plenty of things to go around, not only to the existing folks who've made it possible, but those who came before us, including, Donna, my predecessor, and past council members who were very instrumental in getting this project to where it is today. So we'll be doing a lot of that tomorrow, recognizing those who got us to where we're at.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It takes a village apparently to move some. Yes, it does. All right. Looking at this.
Jay.
Yes.
One update that I had is I did talk to Ralph recently. I know, we finished the paving program like Dennis had mentioned. There's still like 3 to 5 days of ongoing road patching and maintenance that'll be happening. So I know that some of the areas are still in need of some temporary patching before winter, so everything gets cleaned up, and that work is ongoing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know Ralph continues to do a heck of a job. So that's never been a doubt. Want to move back to Ken, to the last thing that we had under there. We do have the tree committee update. And so we have that under the committee. So that should be next, number 4. So I want to jump to Ken real quick, because I know he wanted to give us some form of an update, and then we can go through any other committees or issues that we have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'll try to build on the good news you heard from others here a few minutes ago. I have good news to report. Over the weekend, Ruth Ann and I hiked through the Churchill Valley Greenway, and we made our way up to the 24 hemlock trees that I reported back in April that were heavily infested with hemlock woolly adelgid. And I was personally concerned that the trees could have been lost. And these are trees that were planted by Dr. Joan Gottlieb and her late husband, Milton, about 15 years ago. And the trees are getting pretty sizable at this point. Well, as we got up there, we were expecting to see some remnants of the infestation still there. And we were shocked to find that it's gone. The arborist thought it was going to take 3 treatments to rid the hemlock woolly adelgid from those trees, but it's best we can tell, it's gone. I alerted Mr. Graziani this afternoon about it, as well as Jason Ryan, who was responsible for applying the spray with his team. And also, I copied folks from Penn Hills and Wilkinsburg who actually brought it to our attention before we took that action. But it was really nice to walk up and not to see those trees with the infestation in there. So the actions that you folks were willing to sponsor under Mr. Graziani's leadership, appear to have worked out well. The other question I have is, there are some vines growing, but Ruth Ann and I, we're going to go back and try to remove those ourselves. They've grown over some of the tops of the trees, and we've dealt with them in our own property here. We'll see how far we get with it, but it's nothing that'll, should damage the trees. When the Churchill Greenway is an incredibly spectacular property. In fact, if right now the goldenrod still has its yellow blooms on and the trees are starting to turn. And I went through there on Saturday. There's several trees that got to be 100 years old or more, and they're still in really good condition, really nice trees. The one thing that we noticed though, the Allegheny Land Trust also we were really surprised how nice they've lined the trails. They've cut growth that would get in your way when you hiked along the trail. That's been removed. We're able to see new trees actually coming up in places. Trees are about 4 feet, 5 feet tall. It should eventually take over, different parts of the property. So we read the sign. The Allegheny Land Trust claims they're wanting to do more trail improvements, put bridges over, improve the bridges over the stream. And I was wondering that their work ends right at Bullock Pens. And I know the word came up, big project. Well, the aspect of the land trust developing this property is a big big deal for our borough, as well as Penn Hills and other surrounding communities. The only thing, we only cover trees. It seems like it might be worthwhile having a discussion, and probably with the recreation board. I'm looking for you for advice to see, as the land trust does work on their part, is there something we could be doing on our part? The trails that are in Bullock Pens get connected with the ones on the Churchill Greenway, because right now the Bullock Pens is sort of separated and closed off to itself. Meanwhile, it's a beautiful space that nobody's able to get to very easily at this point. It was just something I noticed. I'm not trying to put more on. You already have a very full plate, but the work at the Greenway is going to go on. Whatever you're doing, the folks at the Land Trust, they're obviously are going to be, doing their effort. And I didn't know if you folks had any thoughts. And I know you were in discussions one time trying to possibly swap out efforts, but it just putting it might be something to consider going forward.
Well, I would just say that that's an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
And depending on where that goes, we'll make, depending on what they want to do, we'll make the difference on what land goes where and who gets funded in the future, and all kinds of interesting questions. So I think right now it's an ongoing conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Jay, if I could jump in here for a second,
Sure.
make a comment about that. I know somewhere along the Allegheny Land Trust, in one of their pieces that they put out, are going to be relying pretty heavily on local volunteers to help out down at that green space. And I know there was a web address on there somewhere. I don't have it with me right now, but I know anyone listening, if you're interested in getting involved with that down there and doing some volunteering work, that surely if you got in contact with the land trust, they could lead you in the right direction and use your services down on that property.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there other committee reports that people want to discuss at all? If not, you see a big section underneath that on phase 2 of the municipal consent order. I will kind of leave that space and allow Alex to kind of push us forward.
So on your agenda, I'll stop sharing here in a minute. And in your packet is a lot of information about a subject that our engineer Dennis had mentioned a little earlier, and that's related to the new consent decree that's coming into effect. Gavin and Dennis were involved with many other engineers and managers and solicitors across the service area to about 50 municipalities, I guess, to work with Elkasan and Three Rivers Wet Weather to figure out how to best do all of this. So there's a lot of detail in here. Obviously, we're not going to read it to all of you tonight. Just want to encourage you to look in your packet. I guess the good news, Dennis, you might want to just review for us in general, as well as, I guess, the tough news, the heavy lift. We'll need to do a project even still, though, we're in good shape. So Dennis, you want to just cover it quickly, what the good news is and what we might have to look at doing?
Sure. Yeah. The brief review is that this consent order is looking at reducing infiltration within the systems. And this is based on the previous orders that we've had to deal with. And in this case, as mentioned under the summary of the order, there is a threshold or a gold line standard associated with each point of connection for the municipality. Based on the current exhibit that would be attached to the order, the municipality is actually under the gold line standard in each one of those cases, which we would hope would represent that we would have no very large projects. However, the order does require that every municipality, whether or not you are above or below that gold line standard, that you still complete projects to reduce that, reduce your infiltration within the system, within the sanitary system, the amount of stormwater which is making its way in. So with that, like I mentioned, it is a 6-year, broken out into 6 years for our timeline of evaluating potential projects, completing those projects, and performing post-evaluation of those. I'll be able to provide more detail, and we may want to sit down and provide a larger summary to what all that will entail. But the good news is that the Borough of Churchill is under that threshold in all of its point of connections. They do have one section where we are tributary to an overflow. That just means the system that we tie into downstream does have an overflow. So we have to work with our neighbors. And myself, as well as Alex, has attended some meetings already with our neighboring municipalities to evaluate how that can be performed. But with that, we will have more information as we kind of continue through this. Like I said, there's a lot to cover all at the moment, but that's a brief summary of the new consent order. And as Alex had mentioned, it has been vetted by a number of engineers, by solicitors, and has been reviewed and negotiated already with the regulatory agencies prior to it being submitted.
Stuff. It's a lot, man. Like, I don't have a lot already.
Yes.
I can keep putting stuff on our plate, but necessary. I understand. Anybody have any questions on it?
No, Jay, I just want to comment. This is Kevin. This is a big deal, but I also want to note what Dennis said. We have been below the goal line. We've been compliant all along because of the efforts of past councils as well as Gateway. So I want to thank them for that. But it's a lot going forward. So people should realize that. Thanks.
Agreed. Others? All right. Moving forward, I think next up on the agenda, and I don't think there's a lot until police committee, particularly I put the police committee back together to make a call on this. We've been working in terms of Alex has been doing a bang up job working with Rebecca in terms of the potential of a regional police merger, basically us and Wilkins, and what the impact of that would be. But I think right now we still have to make up our minds on where that is on the committee, and then bring that to you all as a group. And that stalled a little bit in the magical world of Hillwood, but I will pull it out of the pocket and push it forward. So anything that I missed there in your gentle nudge in the agenda there?
Well said. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's called a gentle nudge via agenda. I I appreciate it very much. Move it, and I will do so. I will take that gentle nudge. The other on here was the ADA discussion. So where are we? What's your sense?
So a draft report has been submitted to us to talk about some of the things we might be able to address here at the Borough Building for improvement. We've already preliminarily submitted something to the county for the first phase of a CDBG grant application that might evolve into an actual application to see if we can make some of those improvements here. It's all in your packet. So just want to encourage you to look at the things that are presented there. And what we will do is work with the infrastructure committee and obviously potentially the capital improvements budget to advance any projects of improvement here at the Borough Building.
What was the pre-application amount?
Community development block grant that's run by the county encourages communities to get to the county potential projects that could be funded.
Right.
And because the borough doesn't really have low moderate income areas, but accessible areas can be addressed. We submitted this as something that could possibly evolve into an application with them, just to get out ahead of it.
Right. Do you have an amount that you feel that the project will be? That's what I'm asking.
$255,000.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's what was submitted out in. Okay. So yeah, I can make a call on that. Yeah. So, similar to other spaces. The wonderful thing about the grant space, right? Conversations help. And I think in this space, I don't just say that in the like, hey, the government relations committee, that's part of what we should be doing all the time, right? Is trying to make sure, but also because it's really necessary, right? Like there's no question that the nature of the CDBG funds for accessibility, what we're trying to do, right, are right in line. So yeah, I know the schedule for it. I get the schedule every year for the pre-application, the application. So I'll follow up as well and make sure we're in a good spot. Okay, cool. Anything else on the accessibility from folks? Cool. Then we've got I don't know, what's that number 8 thing? Does anybody actually want to talk about that? So budget discussion.
Yeah, Krista, if I may, I'll just, Krista has drafted a budget that's been distributed to all the council members. I urge you to take a real good look at it. It's a lot of work, and if you have questions, which you may, please get them back to Krista or myself or Val or Adam, who are part of the finance committee. And we'll address it and get back to you. But it's a great piece of work, Krista. Thank you. But we may have questions in understanding the flows between the different budgets and also the reserve fund that you may have comments on. So I urge you to take a good look at it. Krista, do you want to add anything? Or?
Yeah, I think the biggest highlights from this year's budget is that it incorporates the fund balance policy that we established earlier in the year, which essentially creates a operating reserve for us to roll over from year to year, which was not held in the past. And what it forced us to do is take out tax anticipation notes, which is not recommended by the Government Finance Officers of America, and just generally not recommended, given that we would pay interest on that and receive nothing in return, but just money to roll over and keep us afloat between tax seasons. So that's the biggest thing with the fund reserve policy. In addition, it would start an operating reserve fund, which is essentially like a rainy day savings account, which would allow us to give a buffer in years where tax increases may be necessary or considered. That savings fund would then be used to provide cushion to prevent or lessen a tax increase, which is very important in long-term financial planning. And overall, you'll see that this budget package takes a long-term financial look, which would be something that has not been done in the past, because a capital improvements plan for 5 years is also included to help us plan ahead and not think more in the short term as previous budgets have.
I would just comment that both points that you make are not only outstanding, but there was a time that this borough kind of operated that way. It was a long time ago. And then they actually had a really nice reserve and they thought we have too much money. And then they decided to essentially liquidate it, you know, as opposed to, and lower taxes and make sure that we didn't have the kind of fiscal responsibility. And so the idea of returning to a space of fiscal responsibility in which we understand the nature and need of reserves is something that I am particularly pleased to hear, is what I would say. It is long-term thinking, not day trading. And we wouldn't be in some of the situations. And again, we've done well, right? We've been without loans outside of TANs, and I'm glad that you're looking at that as a policy, because that is just throwing money away. But I think we are in a space that if we look at this the proper way, then we're thinking long-term and we're thinking about having reserves for those rainy days if they come. So I appreciate it. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Jay, if I can make a comment about the budget.
Yes, of course.
I'm just thinking, I talked to several people already about this, and looking at our police force. I think we have, we're in pretty good position now with 9 officers and our chief, but looking to hire another officer. I'm not sure what direction the regionalization is going to go in. We've had in the past some situations, excuse me, that left us a little shorthanded with the coverage of our officers having, for example, just one officer on duty on each shift. So I'm not sure what the budget looks like. I know those 2 nasty words that no one wants to hear. One begins with an R and the other one with a T. But try to hold the line on that. But what we could do of keeping our police force nice and strong.
I'm going to defer to Kevin on that.
He's already talked to me.
Okay. No, we'll take that's what this is all about, starting early on in the process to see what we need. So I appreciate your comments, Mr. Mayor, and we'll need some numbers from the department, from the police committee.
Yeah, and that's always been one of the spaces that we're in, right? Is balancing the number of officers that we have, the level of service that we want, and the potential of overtime and other things that come along with that. So that's something that we'll look at, that you'll look at, Kevin, in your committee as well. And we'll see if where we're at is the right number. Excuse me, if adding is the right number, but we'll come to a final number on that.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor, way to bring up the police, man. Always makes me laugh a little bit. I thought you were going to say that you wanted, 2 more police cars, just to mess.
Well, that'll be in next year's budget.
Yeah, well, what we can do. Anything else in terms of committee-wise or other comments from council before we look at adjourning, so that we get about 20 minutes before we got to come right
Just
back.
one more comment. Valerie shot me over an email about, I mentioned earlier about the volunteering at the Allegheny Land Trust. And if anyone's interested in doing that, it's a pretty easy address. It's www.alleghenylandtrust.org/volunteer. So if anyone's interested in getting involved, you can, again, .org/volunteer.
Sounds like a plan. If there is nothing else at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Right, game, set, match. People, please remember that if you're here for the public hearing on the potential development, that will begin at 8 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel. So you don't have to go anywhere unless I'm wrong here. at which time Alex will jump in and tell me I have no idea what I'm talking about. So we will go away and then return right back to here at 8 o'clock, at which time we will reconvene for the public hearing and continue its hearing process. And anything else, Alex? I'm looking at you, making sure. All right, see everybody back here at 8 o'clock. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.